Good morning to our listeners, wherever you may be, whether you are offline or online. We want to welcome you most warmly this morning to Freedom Square Live on 100.9 FM. And of course, this is a Saturday medicine that happens at 10 a.m. each Saturday of the week. And we'll be doing this for a couple of years. We've been discussing Nigeria and actually the world. And when you hear that iconic song of Sani Okosun, Which Way Nigeria, several years ago, and it is even more important now to ask, which way Nigeria? Which way Nigeria? And of course, which way National Assembly? Which way ELEC? And which way the presidency? And so, just last week, there was an uproar at the National Assembly. It began with the Senate passing an amended electoral bill. The House of Reps doing the same, but they had different content. And then there was a committee to regularize, to harmonize, which they did. And then there was an emergency session of vote independently. The House of Reps had come with something Nigerians wanted, electronic transmission real time and all that. The Senate foot dragged, and of course Nigerians went berserk. And then there was this reconvened urgent sitting of both houses, and the House of Reps did a U-turn, as it were disappointing, so to speak, many people who had thought with a large number they could do something. So both the Senate and House of Reps now agreed, or what they called mixed transmission, dual transmission, electronic and manual. And just the next day, Mr. President, was one of the fastest bills, acts he has ever signed. It's just signed it into law, straight, bam. And many have been so bitter about it. Why did he sign it so quickly? Of course, many argued he had to sign that so quickly because time was of essence. And since then, Nigerians have remained sharply divided. But let's just take a step backwards. After the 2023 general elections, conducted by, of course, ELEC under the 2022 Electoral Act, Nigerians were left divided, sharply divided, as they have always been. Some satisfied. Of course, when you win, you remain satisfied. Or when you're announced to have won, you remain satisfied. There are two things: winning and being announced to have won. Many completely not satisfied, and almost everybody concerned. Technology was deployed to the best. It was said to be deployed, but they had glitches, and it didn't work. There were litigations. And of course, at the end of the day, what happened? The courts had their final verdict, and people were declared. And 2027 is approaching, just next year. Political activities are doing what? Are gearing up. And is the nation going to witness another crisis, electoral crisis, in 2027? With the 2026 Act now, which is what we're going to use. I can't answer the questions I'm raising. So somebody must answer the questions. My job is to provide the question, and somebody has the duty to answer the questions. No matter how uncomfortable the questions are. And this morning I'm just sitting alone. But the man I feel has the capability and the capacity to answer those questions. He's a global analyst. He's a political analyst. He's even an electoral analyst. And that's why he's chairman of the Guild of Political Analysts of Nigeria, Enugu State Chapter. He's a communication scholar, Dr. Ambrose Iboke. Ambrose, doctor, good morning.
Good morning, my fellow dog. Chief, and Papa Knight and all of them. Thank you for having me on the show. Good morning to our listeners. Which way Nigeria?
Which way Nigeria? 2022 Electoral Act and 2026 Electoral Act? Are there differences?
Yes, there are insignificant differences. But again, the way we are reading it out, something came to my mind. We had election in 2023. Less than 1 year, basically just less than 1 year to the election, we changed the electoral law and provided a new electoral law. That itself shows that we are not serious as a country. After the 2023 election, one expected that the flaws that were noticed, in fact, immediately after the 2023 election, we knew that there were some flaws we needed to correct in the 2022 Electoral Act. 2023 passed, we didn't do it. 2024 passed, we didn't do it. 2025 passed, we didn't do it. And just as INEC has even brought out their timetable, all of a sudden we started doing it 1 year to the election, because the first set of elections are in February 2027. So February 2026, we passed an electoral act.
Even are you sure of this year date? They're looking at almost late December, early January.
So because of
they amended 360 days to 300.
And then again, no, because of even the festivities that some people complained about. So if you are running away from Lent and you are running away from Ramadan, that means you need to do it earlier.
Yeah, that's why they reduced the day from 360 to 300.
So what we are now saying is this: why will a country that is serious sit down and wait for an election to be imminent before they start tinkering on it? As we speak now in this studio, an election is going on in the FCT. Now, 2 days to the election or 3 days to the election was when the electoral law was signed. Now, some people were asking, which law will INEC implement the election with? Because all the preparation to the election was done with the 2022 Electoral Act. Now, 3 days to the election, a new electoral law came into force. So that is how, unintentional we are about development and growth of democracy in Nigeria. And I've advocated earlier this year in January, where they were talking about electoral. I said, well, this electoral law should just not come on until after the 2027 election, so that we can really have time to implement it. But as it is, it has been passed into law. And what are the differences? The crux of the matter, the major difference I see is the malaise of the 2023 election, the litigation time, where the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, says that the IREV, that was a technology deployed by INEC, was a mere viewing center. So it was like, it was just going to watch football, maybe Premiership or Premier League matches. That was a viewing center. That was very, very uncouth of that judgment. That statement was very, very embarrassing, I must say. It does not reflect the language that that hallowed temple of justice should use for that kind of sensitive matter. But the IREV now has now been validated to be that it's no more a viewing center, but it's now part of the collation process. So that is a major significant shift. Because I remember that kind of issue also happened during the, what did Jonathan introduce that time? Card reader. So there were issues like that about whether, they say, it's the form that matters. That is what is the register. That it is the register of the electoral register that matters, that INEC prepared, the physical one, not the one captured by IREV and by card reader at that time. So now that we are here, we came, those other issues, reduction from 60 days to 360 to 160 days, all those other issues. That is why they're not receiving that kind of significant attention, because the major issue that Nigerians wanted in that in this Electoral Act 2026 was to see whether the mistakes of last year, where results for the presidential election were not transmitted real time, where mutilated ECA forms, 8 forms, were admitted as results. where results that were removed with correcting fluids and written on biro, where figures were superimposed on figures. So, they wanted a statement in the law to say whatever bond papers are mutilated like that, that it should not be accepted, or whatever that the beavers captured should be what is accepted, not when it is mutilated. So all those things were not there. And then one comes to think that the House of Reps that wanted this to happen, all of a sudden, I will not say they made a U-turn. I would rather say that this time around they were cowed, because even when the House of Reps Speaker called for voice vote, these things are not supposed to be by voice votes anyway. They're supposed to be, this kind of matters that have this magnitude are just supposed to be that electronic voting within the National Assembly, where people vote electronically, punch their button, yes or no, and the machine automatically collates it. I think that was how the third term agenda was killed. Yes. Because of now you're asking people to do. And then there was a point, I think, in the Senate where they convened, where they even told, you can see the intimidation. They told the APC members to step to one side, and these other people stay one side. So you are like, stay outside. Let's see you now. Let's see how you get your ticket if you don't. And these are, I said, the politicians, the first thing is self-preservation in a bid to perpetuate themselves in power. So at that point, when you are being cowed, when you have been forced to say, I stand up for what you believe in, and it's okay, all the APC members go to one side, will you not say you're not an APC member and stand in between? So it was an intimidation tactics that worked. And even the APC members who were part of those who were saying real-time transmission of the were bullied into submission. But even when the voice vote was cast in the House of Reps, the voice for nays were higher than the voice for ayes.
From your ears.
But according to the speakers here, he said he heard
the years.
The years were higher. So that is why they went for that kind of system of voting, because it can be manipulated. Because even when three people say aye, they will say the ayes have it. And once he hits his gavel, you cannot. So in the whole, the 2026 Electoral Act is the same old order. It is not concrete. We will still battle the same problems we had, but it's a small step towards the cycling we have. We are motion without movements. It's a small step, but it will lead us nowhere.
Small step that will certainly lead us nowhere. Well, it may lead us somewhere. It may not lead us somewhere. I've followed court's judgments in electoral matters. And one point I have not been able to actually understand is this substantial compliance. When you see a rigged system, totally rigged system, and the court will say there was substantial compliance. I was told that if you had 80% of winning a case and there are 20% chances of losing the case, then you may still lose the case. Now, as an analyst, what do you understand by this substantial? It means that, okay, there was 60% compliance and there are 40% non-compliance. Therefore, something that will determine the fate, the well-being of over 200 million people. Few members, few justices of the court, or Court of Appeal or Supreme Court will sit in judgment and then decide. So what's your take on this substantial compliance?
I think if Nigerians want to be doing substantial compliance, they should just borrow from the United States of America and maybe put in our constitution where we can have electoral college. Because in America, when the population finishes voting,
yeah,
you now go electoral college with votes, which are also representative of the people, indirect representation of the people. In fact, it is those ones that own the votes. But it's not the Supreme Court now to start saying substantial compliance without, actually saying what is a valid substantial. I remember the 1983 election, where they had to bring in the mathematician in court to start saying what is 2/3.
Yes.
So it's not today. We started seeing this kind of magic. Fela called it government magic, where the Constitution has spelled it that you must win in 2/3 of the place. So the calculation should be what is 2/3. And to tell you how elections were very serious those days, they had to bring in experts in mathematics. But even that time, I don't think they were able to solve it. So because at that point, what was 2/3 of 19?
The court started to separate it in their own way.
So they decided to separate. So even when the mathematician was coming to say, okay, what is 2/3 of 19? And you cannot get a perfect number. So you start that. So where will you borrow the local governments from? So those are the things. I think the politicians are very smart enough to leave all these what the lawyers will call lacunas. That is gaps in the constitution and in the laws. Why they do that is to ensure that they'll be able to manipulate the laws and be able to have their self-interest first, and then anything that will benefit the national interest and will benefit them, they will let it go. They will pass it. But anything that will benefit the national interest and will not serve their own personal purpose, they will not allow it to fly. Therefore, they will make sure that those laws are manipulated. Now, when the court says substantial, is it what empirical basis? We are researchers. What empirical basis is the word substantial? Is it that the person wanted it 2/3? What are the figures saying and the rest? Or did they say it's okay since he didn't get the 2/3, but he was able to get highest number of votes in this it's not substantial? These are the problems we continue having, and that is why many people are losing hope in the judiciary. Many people before they said judiciary is the last hope of the common man. Now the common man does not even like going there, because if the common man goes there now, he doesn't know what he's coming out with. You may get there with just an ordinary case, and the next thing you're detained, and they give you days to start coming from court, from prison, or from detention. So things are the things are not working well. But again, the judiciary also have been intimidated and bullied. It was in this country we saw a sitting CJN being almost kidnapped at night, and sent by the president of the country, Buhari. If it's not the bravado of this current FCT minister now, who was then the governor of Rivers State,
yes,
that would have just disgraced him and pulled him maybe in a Black Maria and moved into a sitting CJN. So these things is a matter of the powers given to the president. They are too much. I've argued severally that if the exclusive power to appoint the INEC chairman and to appoint the CJN is the exclusive power of the President of the Federal Republic, then if the behavior or the neutrality of these appointees depends on the benevolence of the president. So the president is a nice guy who wants to obey the rule of the law, then we will see rule of law. If the president is not a nice guy who doesn't care about the rule of law, then we will not say anything about the rule of law. Insofar that we are fixed within that structure, then there's nothing good that will come out. So we leave it to permutations of human behavior, not on the solidity of our laws. So until our laws are solid enough to say, okay, no, the president cannot unilaterally appoint these two sensitive people, because for the legislature, it is left for the elected representative in both chambers to elect their leaders.
Yeah.
Why are we not doing the same in the judiciary? We must create a system where it is not the president that appoints the CJN, where it's not the president that appoints the INEC chairman. Because if, as it is now, the INEC chairman and the CJN are appointees like the ministers or chief of staff or SAs or PAs, they are just appointees. They'll send them, or ambassadors. They'll send them, appoint them, send them to the National Assembly for concurrence.
And they rubber stamp them.
So at the end, it's still the president that appoints them. So who will they kowtow to? It's the president that they will defer to.
Yeah. There's one or two issues that actually that the new Electoral Act seem to have brought to the fore, and that is internal democracy. And the Electoral Act unambiguously says two methods that will actually seem like opposites: direct primaries and then consensus. What do you understand by those? And how do you think it will affect the fortunes, the democratic process of the parties in choosing, in electing, in selecting, in imposing their candidates for election?
Those are two vague and nebulous words that were inserted into when it was indirect. Delegates were appointed, selected by a mixture of stakeholders, even up to the point of where the National Working Committee or the National Executive of the party have some influence or interference in who comes for the national delegates, for example, and even in the state delegates. Now, that created some kind of control between the governor, the national leaders, and the rest. What this has done now is to remove that checks and balance, those checks and balances. It is effectively off, and this is intentional. There have been plans before this happened, and the plans is to ensure that out of the 36 states, that it is basically the ruling party, APC, that controls all of them. That is a precursor to this thing that inserted into the electoral law. Because if you have all the states virtually under the control of the ruling party, what it means that those external influences and variables are eliminated to give the governors the powers to do whatever they want to do within. Okay, are we going back to the days of Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, where they will come to the Colosseum in Greece and said, "Oh, men and women of Greece"?
I bring you good ideas.
Or if it is Abuja, wherever we gather at Eagle Square or Abiola Stadium to elect the primary flag bearer.
So how do you think the direct primaries would work? Because that is my
the direct primaries is not going to work. It is configured not to work already.
It means that every member of the party must vote.
How?
Where?
Where?
When?
Who organizes them? So
maybe they may do state by state.
So the truth is that even within the states, are you going to do local government? Everybody will come to the local government secretariat or stadium and fill up themselves, or you are going to bring people from all the villages to come with buses to come to your city center or your ward. Everybody who are members, they say it's going to come from the ward level. So everybody who is at the ward, okay, they are doing governorship primaries now. So in all the wards in the state, they will be voting for who will be flag bearer. That is what it means. So who owns the wards? Who controls the wards? Who funds the wards meeting and the rest? So what will happen is that it just becomes an appendage of what the governor was already doing in most of those cases. So those checks and balances were effectively knocked off, and you give the governors the latitude to do whatever they want to do, the latitude to move. What chairman you must deliver. Before, what chairman were held for the elections, but now they would have delivered the election before the election, because you are told to make sure that this person emerges as a candidate. But before, this candidate is goes by a representative convention, and after the whole thing, a flag bearer emerges, and then the what people are now for your polling units. This make sure this our party wins. But what you have now, the parties have already won, and it will limit the space for people to for aspirants to participate. Because at that level, you would have stifled the space. You are congested to make sure the space is tight.
The governors control the party structure
already. That was even a problem already. Now you have no more control. You have told them to put the party structure under their feet. So you cannot even have space anymore to even have aspirants. Before aspirants can even come to conventions and try their luck and make statements, but now those things are not going to happen anymore. So I think this is very intentional. It is a devious smart move, as IBB, we said it is an evil genius plan.
Let's look at the consensus.
The consensus.
What are the merits?
What is consensus?
There is.
In this political, what is consensus?
Consensus
Majority are when you, now that even this direct primaries is now available. The issue of
an option to
imposed consensus is now even more because anybody the leader of the party becomes the consensus candidate, and they will do it by voice vote. Have we agreed on this person? You say no. Someone will say, one set will say yes. He said the yes have it. That is how to go for democracy. We thank everybody who have accepted. They will not allow you. They will not hand over microphone to anybody who is talking. So what has happened now that consensus has died? Because before, it was the competition of aspirants that leads to
people
consensus. That say, okay, look, and then that's okay. Please, can you step down for this fellow? This is why. This will give our party more chance at the polling unit. This is why. Tell your supporters to support him. These things are traded off. As you're coming back, and then that is where you build the original consensus. And when I say, okay, we have talked to all the members, we have been able to come under one roof, and we are giving our support to this guy or this woman. Now, how does consensus work in a situation where you don't even have a convention in the right sense of it, where you have trickled down, watered down everything, and what you get is the collation? So how do I know that in my ward, in Arco Ward 4, that this was what was said? So we'll start saying another IRF, because resource trickling into the local government, then from local government, it's not trickling to the states. Before, all the people from all the local governments and everything, from the direct, have representatives, and your representative. But now, you don't even have any. So you don't even know who to hold responsible. Because before the results go from the ward to the local government, from there to the state, only God knows what would have happened to those results.
There was something Mr. President said after signing the bill into an act, and it kept me wondering, and I'm still wondering. Mr. President said that the people come manually to the polling booth, and they are given the voting material manually. And manually they go to a corner of the place and manually vote. And they will manually collect the results. Well, I don't know what they are talking about. Now, my impression, may be wrong, is that he almost said, look, manual transmission is, if you have done 80% of this manually, so why talk about electronic transmission? Because by that, it implies that all the processes leading to that are manually done. I'm not sure whether you heard him say that.
Yeah.
What actually are you thinking about that?
Well, most in a third world country like this, most of the things we do are manually done to a point before we apply digital. So, we even go to the United States of America.
What's your reading of that, Mr. President?
Well, when we are going to the meeting in America, America still uses, in fact, America have what they call early voting.
Yeah.
Where you go and vote in the post office.
That's not voting, everything.
And even in the United States, you go to the post office and throw your vote.
And go away.
And you go away. And then before the real election day comes now, even results have started trickling in.
Yes.
But when they are collecting their results, nobody comes and starts, this thing starts moving immediately. And their own systems immediately is also entering. They are transmitting it out, but we are not doing that way. So when you want to make any digital online transmission, it starts with manual. So if it is your phone, you must pick up your phone first. It's a manual activity. Even this AI, when they talk about Siri, open the door for me, it's a manual process.
You first of all have to talk to it.
You must have to talk to the Siri. So you must even have to put battery in the Siri or plug it for your AI, anything to work. So the human element in our existence must be there. And then for electoral process, the good Lord Jonathan government has been able to remove most of the fraud that happened before the voting through this digital card for elections, digitizing our voters card. Before, the local card was manual. It was being laminated So you can go to any business center and get that done. So the process of digitization made it almost useless to do manipulation before the voting, because your electoral digital database is there to match the actual number of people. Before, you have 30 people in a polling unit, and then the result declared is 200.
Okay.
But these things now, because of the digital progress we have made, you can actually, because that time it was manual register. Now the thing is digital, you can match it. So I do not agree when the president says, oh, since we are doing manual all the time, the problem now we have is the result, the collation. So anything done to try to digitize the collation process is what the president should encourage. So the paper, we are taking care of whether there are more voters or not voters in the polling units through the electronic, through the card reader, through the digitization of the card. Now, after voting, what happens? After what we are saying, and it's not correct to say that all the processes leading to the election is manual. It's not. Your card, even the voter's card, is not manual. It has been digitized. All the information there are digitized, and they can be pulled from any database in INEC. So they know you. It's digital. When you vote with it, they can also match it with you. They know the numbers of people who are registered in that polling unit is digital. They know the number of people that have voted. Now, the problem has always been that we carry those papers, EC8, and then move it manually to any center. We are not saying between that process, a lot of manipulations take place. Distortion of the EC8 form, filling of results, changing numbers of other parties and whatever. What they are now saying is that a simple solution, which the beavers have taken care of, you can take a picture of immediately after the voting has ended, right there and there, the polling, you take the picture of it, upload it, and let it go straight to the IRF. And in that way, it eliminates that process of taking those physical papers to the polling. It doesn't stop what is going on in the polling center. You still take it, but they need those things for exhibit and other things, especially through litigation, and they need it for documentation. So what we are saying is that you do not, there will not be people waiting for INEC officials on the road or anybody trying to snatch ballot boxes, because those things have been captured and sent. So it will minimize terror. It will minimize robbery of it. It will minimize thuggery, and it will minimize manipulation of the result. And when you do that, it doesn't take anything. We are already taking care of it, because we have moved beyond what the president is saying. In the 2023 election, the beavers has moved beyond what the president is saying. We do all this capturing, and then to also say it's not correct is that before you vote, the beavers captures you. You go through electronic processes. You do thumb printing. You do all those things. Those are not physical. Those are technology based. Those are digital based to capture everything you have done. So that paper aspect is just what makes it physical. But again, I was trying to say, let everything be digital, because if you have verification is digital, your voter's card is digital, your verification before you vote is digital, you're taking your picture, you're taking your thumbprint, all those things are digital. Then the only side which is physical, is that paper. What they are saying is that digitize it, digitize the process, and that's what the beavers does.
Okay, one thing that many people have asked the question, which of course could happen in Nigeria, is what you call the glitches. They could happen. And that could be system failure. I'm sure you've gone to a bank once. In fact, I was a victim. I think I was traveling abroad, and that was the day I decided to not have money in one account. It was at this bank. I won't be afraid to say it. The entire system collapsed in Abuja. When I mean the entire system, if you went to my Tama, they tell you the system is down. If you went to Wuse 2, they tell you the system was down. If you went to Gwagwalada, they tell you the system was down. And then they make a withdrawal, do a foreign exchange, and I had a flight to catch and the entire system for that day was down. As we were considering, it could have been sabotage. It's possible. And it happens on election day. What would be the backup plan?
Well, you see, Nigeria has been operating a digital system for many years now, running more than 20 years now. Ali, the first GSM operation came in 2002. 2002 to now is 24 years. From there, we have grown our broadband. We have grown our, internet nets. We have improved. Fiber optic cables have been planted, buried in the Atlantic Ocean from Lagos to Europe. We make video calls. So our internet broadband has really, really expanded. We have NACHCOM SAT 1, 2, and all those things. So we have grown over the years. And what this means is that we have a lot of stability. When you watch what the private sector operates, for example, the GSM operators, you find out that glitch may happen, but it just happens once in a while.
And want to pick that particular day. There are days you wake up, it's either MTN is down for almost a whole day. They'll be telling you that sorry.
Really?
So I'm saying, so if for that election day this happens,
Well, no,
because it's likely to happen.
We aren't talking about deliberate sabotage.
We
are not talking about systems failure here, because that's where I'm going to.
It could be both.
No, this one is systems failure. Because, for example, there was this thing I attended some earlier this week, an interaction with an CSOs from the Southeast. And one of the things we were talking about this electoral reform was that somebody raised an issue. I said, look, are you sure some people are not testing us already by having, from last year, by having multiple collapse of the national grid? That it may just be testing of the actual thing that will happen.
Testing the microphone.
So that they will tell you, oh, it has been happening since 2 years ago. And I started thinking about what that person said. And truth to the power, 4 days later, just yesterday, Abuja Electric Distribution Company came up that, oh, there will be the chapter or whatever. So, and I said, oh, a lot of the disco companies have been giving us letters, giving press releases since. Are you sure this is not also part of the plot? Because if, say, how come the grid has been collapsing so fast since 2023? We have never seen those kind of grid collapse before.
It's
almost every month. So somebody was saying, oh, if it collapsed in January, March, 2024, 25, why can't it collapse in January and February 2027? So to make it look as if it is normal. So Nigerians have started thinking, thought process have started wired to think that way.
Yeah.
That is actually a plan, rehearsal, hatched, so that it will look ordinary. So that what happens like today, when these people issued that alert yesterday that there was not going to be power supply in Abuja, they will tell you, oh, it's not normal, that there have been systems failure, they have been working on it, they have been rationing light, they have been doing that. So this is a test of what will come in 2027. So I agree that there may be system failure, but the system failure is different from deliberate sabotage, because from what has been happening, there have been rehearsals given to us since 2024 to show us that these things may happen. Now, during the 2023 election, during the governorship election, nothing happened to the IRF. Before the general election, there was 5 off-season, off-cycle governorship elections. In fact, immediately after the 2023 election, there was an off-cycle election that the IRF, online transmission was used. So why was it that when it came to the National Assembly and the presidential election, where some powers felt threatened, that was when it failed? Well, so this glitch thing is a good excuse to tell you that then the electoral law even said that when it fails, now just like you say substantially complied, these are bogus words. You know, these are bogus words when you said substantially complied. Now, you know, say where it fails, somebody has asked a question. Who validates the failure? What is failed? Because remember, after the 2023 election, when the LP wanted to investigate, wanted to do a technical investigation, whether IRF actually failed, they were denied. Because they wanted to go to the back end, they started citing national security, we cannot release our database for a third party, this and that. because somebody, an external body, an external factor must authenticate or validate system's failure. Is a system failure, was it working and it just stopped? Or somebody in INEC went to to touch it? And I remember that we also had this rumor of somebody who was handling the technical aspect was transferred and all those things. So glitch does happen, or glitches do happen. But what we are now saying is that who intentionally wants to make the glitch happen? Because if you want to sabotage a system, you can sabotage any system. In fact, the laws and our constitutions that we have are one of the finest in the world. But it's always the implementation that makes it worse, and the reaction of the people that makes it not work. Because when some CSO, civil society organizations, came out when the Senate first passed this 2026 bill in the House, how many Nigerians came out with them? I could count the crowd. There were no that one that Mr. Peter went to join them. How many? There were less than 100 for a country of over 200 million people. Imagine what would have having 500,000 people have followed them.
That takes me to my next question, and it is very, very important. And what do you think, by any standard, by any means, that the 2026 Electoral Act in any way can restore the people's trust in our democracy?
No, it will rather alienate their trust, because already the 2023 election made the people distrust the system, because as I said earlier, just 1 week or 2 weeks interval, elections, what you said was a glitch, was a smooth one. After that general election, all cycle election, we have been having it smooth. Why was it that particular day? Why did you refuse a third party to validate or refute what you have said was a glitch? So with this one, and Nigerians were expecting that that thing will be corrected, that normally will be corrected. What did you do? Even the House of Reps that they had hopes on to struggle it out, or stretch it out with the Senate to make sure that we see the way they crumble like pack of cards, and nothing happened. So I think what will happen is that less people will come out to vote, especially the Gen Zs, who last election, those digital transmissions of those things, IREV, internet, gave them that belief that the election system will be transparent, only to come out and turn it down again. And you just see that if you go back to the days of where during the election people playing football in their compounds and in their streets, that's what we go down, because Nigerians have started to say, oh, it's their election. Let them do whatever I want. But I don't think we should allow them to, we should not go back to that shell, because if
how can we do that?
How can we do that? Is to ensure also that we come out en masse on the day of election. First of all, get out your voter's card, upgrade it, do everything. Good enough. One of the good things also about this 2026 Electoral Act is that you don't any longer need to wait for your PVC, your physical PVC. You can now download your PVC, your permanent voter's card. You can download it now from the INEC website, INEC portal. Just as you can download your name, your national identity number. You can download your INEC permanent voter's card now. So that has been made possible by this law. Because before, INEC would do distribution was a problem. There are many uncollected cards in INEC office. And in last election, we saw somewhere in one of the states where where INEC cards, where PVCs, private voters cards, were actually dumped in the gutter. We saw them so that some people will not be able to vote. We also saw situations where people went to INEC office as early as 4 a.m. and were not able to collect a voter's card. So now, voter's card, there's no excuse about not collecting voter's card or not access it. Go to the INEC portal, download. I hope there won't be glitch also when you are trying to download your card. Come out, vote. Then ensure all the party agents. I think one of the problems we are having is that some of the political parties refuse to deploy agents, whether they don't have the money or some of them have been bought over. Sometimes you deploy party agents to go and monitor an election. It doesn't have money to eat.
And the other party?
And the other party have all the money. And they say, "God, come here before Oga kills you. Take this thing, take this thing and eat." After eating, they say, "Don't worry, we'll give you 100,000 and when you are going home. Just look the other way. These are the problems we are having. So, ability to deploy party agents is very key. Credible party agents is very key.
And we're going to come to the issue of party. But before we go on a short break, I just want to bring one issue, and that's the issue of interpretation of elections. And that takes on to the judiciary. I hope nobody's going to break my head if I say Nigerians have lost faith in the judiciary. Whether it is the electoral tribunal, whether it is the appellate courts, they've seen very wonderful judgments. Even though a judge told me that public perception cannot be translated into judicial interpretation. That people have a right to think what they think should happen. But the judges or the justices will look at what are the materials before them, and then in their best ability will decide their cases. And sometimes even when it goes in somebody's favor, what does it happen? The people will clap and rejoice. When it goes against them, what happens? People will begin to say, no, the judiciary was biased. Now, so the issue is, looking at Nigeria next year, do you think there will be a significant change in the manner our judicial officers interpret election processes and results?
I think the behavior of every public officer, be it in the judiciary, legislature, executive, and other forms of public office, stewardship, actually depends on the reaction of the people, of the citizens. The human nature tends to misbehave if there are no repercussions or consequences for wrong actions. And that is why, in creating a modern society, they created laws. And when you break the laws, there are punishments.
Consequences.
There are consequences. When there are no consequences, the human mind likes unfettered freedom. That is how we are configured. So when you go to Europe, or the West that have mastered this art, look at what is happening in Britain. The king's brother was arrested on his birthday.
Yeah.
Was it yesterday or the first?
Andrew.
Was arrested. And the king wrote, let the law, in fact, he left it like a one-line paragraph. The third paragraph said, let the law take its course. Where do you try that here? Does it work here? It cannot work here. So what we have is a system where the people who are in power are above the law. They can behave anyhow they want. They can do anyhow. They can use the people's plane to go for birthday parties. They can use the presidential jet to go and drop their children in school. They can do anything. Come to the lower level. Go to the villages every weekend. You see federal ministry of this. Everywhere in Nigeria, they use buses from the ministry in Abuja to come home to carry yam and carry guests and do all
and burials.
And for burials, for birthdays, housewarming, different kinds of things. So, but when you behave that way over there, the people make sure you pay for it. A part of the payment is that you make sure that you are removed from office. Sometimes you go to jail. Look at the Epstein files. Look at what is happening, shaking the whole people. And even our own existential problems, we have not been able to hold our leaders accountable, our profiles. So that is why over there, it looks like the politicians are better. They are not. It's the same human nature. But the fear of the politician in America is that if I misbehave, my people will make sure I lose that seat and go to jail if possible. That is what that's what matters. Look at the way they are tackling the president in America. Look at the way they are tackling the prime minister in Britain. Look at the way they are calling on him for appointing somebody ambassador to the United States, knowing that the person has a relationship with a convicted pedophile. That is what he's facing now. That because you appointed that person, the person has lost his job. Because you appointed that person, the person is about going to jail. Because he appointed him, himself should go. Well, here, look at what we have. So, where our citizens justify the madness that is going on, either through primordial sentiment of as our party member is from my ethnic group, or we are practicing the same religion. So the masses
of the weaponized poverty.
There's no weaponized poverty. I don't agree with that.
Why?
It's an excuse of failure for the citizens. When you say weaponized poverty, everywhere in the world, poverty is weaponized if you don't fight for it. What led to the French Revolution?
Right.
Was it not poverty? But the people of France came together and say, enough is enough. Even in the southwest Nigeria here, there was one time the what happened in Lorry, I think 100 and something, they say, Otoge. Otoge means it is enough. So if you don't know when it is enough, and you keep giving excuses for your own, because what happened in Nigeria, that the masses, the citizens, give excuses for the failure of leadership. I never see where those kind of things happen. I mean, so their political history. It happens so much in Africa. And that is why Africa has not moved forward.
The air we breathe is different from the people you are talking about.
And so therefore, we should not expect to enjoy the kind of things they enjoy, because we are not on the same pedestal. Yeah. We are on an existential level. And even the existence is trying to be sniffed out of us. And we are still celebrating them. Just, you go around, we are journalists. Meet a group of people complaining about a governor or a local government chairman, a governor. Peter immediately sees the governor and so, Your Excellency, you are the best thing that happened after Agege bread. And he's saying, Your Excellency, anything for us? And then, so it's not weaponizing power. It is about a class of people who are living, whose primordial sentiments is stronger than their existential level. Because if you know that these people are making me poor, and you still follow them, it's not weaponization of poverty. It's that you don't even know you are living just at animalistic level. That is the baseline of existence. And that's what has been happening to us. Poverty was weaponized in the 60s. There were poor people everywhere in the 40s. Iva Valley Massacre happened in the 40s. About women riots happened in 1929. So poverty has always been a weapon. But the people resisted it. Even the intellectual class resisted it. How they change actually where writings fall apart at the age of 27. They were furious. They were writing everything. And then somebody comes here and tells us that we are weaponizing poverty. We don't know poor people that time. Even after the Biafran War, that how many millions of people died through poverty, malnutrition, and kwashiorkor.
Yes.
People had dignity. That's why people like my father and his generation went out of the Southeast in search of any job to keep their families alive.
Okay.
So the dignity we are talking about for you to fight for your existence has nothing to do with poverty. It has something to do with your state of mind, where you have elevated primordial sentiments above your own personal welfare.
Okay, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Don't go anywhere, don't change the dial. Still stay tuned for that conversation.